Okay. Because, like I said, that there's so much stuff going on. There's two things that I forgot. One is they're playing off a Shoals ambulance. So one is playing off a Shoal ambulance for further mental abuse. And two was I forgot to mention the abuse by uh, Catherine Bailey. Catherine Bailey. Okay. During my time with regional paramedic services. So my supervisor that I was attached to was not John Prater. John Prater was over training, but the guy's name was Bailey. I forgot. I think it was Sean Bailey, maybe. I don't know. I can't recall. Long story short, uh, during that time, I had a childhood friend contact me, and she began contacting me while I was at Regional Paramedic Services through Facebook Messenger. She started contacting me, knowing ahead of time that I was going to be snuffed and separated, just like they always do. They start contacting you days, weeks, or months ahead of time, leading into the abuse, or in this case, the separation. So let's start there. Number one, the whole regional paramedics piece was in the early weeks of July of this year, where I was separated because they set up a psychological ambush and they set up a smear campaign orchestrated by my own trainer, quote unquote. I think his name was Travis, and it was either Bree or Megan, one of the two, or maybe somebody. It was another female. Long story short, the whole experience was founded on sending a bunch of radio chatter and advanced life support calls that I would never be dispatched to, but I was always called to and then pulled back from. Always called to and then pulled back from. The whole time it was like that, including going to calls that were quote unquote regulars, okay, quote unquote regulars, according to them, where the female EMT would huff and puff and roll her eyes and be like, oh gosh, now we got to go to this guy. He's always like this, you know. Really, he doesn't need to, but we transport him anyways. And that was the whole thing that they would orchestrate. Coming back to the ambulance with blood and guts and not guts, but blood and suction tubes that are all bloody, and coming back and acting all like, ALS, like we've got big bad things going on and we're going to send you out to the big bad things. Wait a second. No, we're not. Okay, so the picture that they start painting out there in regional is completely to get you to think, you know, in a certain way or a certain frame of mind. Okay. And then they start orchestrating this. And it came to a point where the gentleman called who was concerned of weakness, and he couldn't get to the ER, him and his daughter, because he was too weak to go down the stairs. We get there, and I'm told that I'm supposed to be leading, but come to find out, they once you get on scene, immediately you're disarmed. None of what you say or do matters, and then they end up taking over, right? They didn't do anything like put him on cardiac monitor immediately. They had, there all of this scene choreography is completely way out in left field. Their sole purpose was focused on me and making sure that they're setting me up the whole time. I get to asking some questions and figure out what's going on. And the guy who's supposed to be quote unquote ALS, according to Travis, has walked from one end of his house to the other, from the bathroom in this case to the other end. And he's smiling at this point, and he's kosher, and he's alert and oriented times four. Okay, all of a sudden, long story short, I'm not going to get into anything else. He was discharged, except he was discharged, some minor bleeding to his genitals or general urinary tract is common according to discharge papers, yada, 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 yada. I told the trainer, Travis, that, this is technically not ALS. I want to see what he'd like to do. We get in there, and all of a sudden, the daughter yells at me to leave the house. They turn on me and look at me, Travis and this other EMT, and tell me to leave. Long story short, I get called back. I do what I'm supposed to do. And Travis decides he's going to drive this patient, okay, lights and sirens, and the EMT is going to be doing 45 and a 25. They're going to over triage this guy and get him to the ER. Okay, whatever. I go through all these meetings. I call for a debrief. I call for a debrief with Cam, the supervisor, Cammy, or whatever her name is. We go through it. Not once did the EMT or Travis have a discussion, right? Like a regular debrief should be, right? To have a discussion as a team, what's going on. Instead, it was them against me, pitting them against me, trying to tackle some type of intimate little unethical or unmoral aspect that they're trying to navigate to try to get out of from me, when none of that's true. I get back to the house and called in Monday to drive all the way back to the headquarters because they couldn't do a voice or a video conference with me. Instead, they wanted to have me there where you hear on the video what happened. I'm then slandered, and you hear them saying that I was sleeping, which I wasn't, and then you have them saying that I had this attitude, apparently. Okay, when you can hear me say exactly what I said, it wasn't an attitude, it was direct and transparent. Okay, and that I did my due diligence before I had come to training, at least 2 weeks in advance, and I did not and that due diligence, for some odd reason, was deflected and deterred. And now you're embarrassing me, okay, in front of the training session. That's what's going on here. You'll hear me say that. And then you're going to hear them say and a lot of this whole thing is what Mr. Hughes would call fog, F-O-G, right? It's nonstop fear-mongering, always asking me why. Well, why this? Well, why that? Right? Well, why this? Well, why that? Why? Trying to get me to obligate myself to humility or incorrectness, right? Just like Mr. Bailey didn't want to have or say anything regarding my stance on negligent driving, okay? And who wants to argue with me. So when you're right, they still say that you're wrong. And it's the same perpetual dialogue that you have. You're always wrong when you're right. Okay, it's this operant conditioning, this narcissistic abuse that you go down this hole, okay, with. So Catherine Bailey is contacting me while all of this is going on, and her name is Bailey. So they're constantly in concert contacting you, and I have this on record here. I'll make sure that I make this very objectifiable. So I began, this is right, and she contacts me right as I'm entering regional paramedics. Right as I'm entering. We switch numbers. Okay. Right here. Okay. You can see down here on this corner. Right here. June 30th. All right. June 30th. We switch out numbers. We do all this stuff. Yada, yada. All right. So we get to chit-chatting on the phone, texting, yada, yada, doing whatever we do, whatever. While this is going on, she's giving me this drama. this drama conversation, right? She's thinking one thing when I'm not doing that, right? I'm not doing what she thinks I'm doing. I'm just giving her a hard time. And she's giving, and I noticed that I already knew ahead of time why she was contacting me, because my supervisor's name was Bailey, and they've used this dozens of times since 2014, dozens of times. I knew what was going on. My supervisor's name was spelt the same way, yada, yada, yada. And they're always using this female counterpart, or this female, almost like a weapon, if you will, to use as psychological abuse in my occupational component. Always, right? I have text in her little, let me see if I could even pull it up. I might be able to pull it up by the date. Let's see here. Ding, right here. Okay. Right here. All right. July 5th, all the way through July 5th. I ended up leaving regionals around that time because I was fed up and I was separated. I was told that I was quote unquote not a fit. That's what I was told. I was told, quote unquote, I was not a fit. Okay. Then I go to Shoals, and that's where I have an issue with the quote unquote supervisors, Franklin and Mr. Canterbury, which for some reason is then relayed to HR. What's her name? I can't even remember. Relayed to her, which you hear on my vlogs, where she goes through this spiel of their values. Says she's with the vice president, yada yada, whatever. Okay. You heard my concern with Franklin, one of the day paramedics that I was with. I told him I'm not riding with him if he's not securing the patient. He then tries to turn it around in the beginning of the confrontation and the discussion, really, but he tried to confront me. In the discussion, that I'm supposed to talk to him if I want to do things by the book and all this weird shit. And he starts talking about himself and just deflecting over the concern. That's what he did there. He minimize and deflect. You heard that whole thing with Franklin. That's his whole persona, which is minimize, deflect, disarm. That is what you hear objectifiably, verbatim. I'm going to show you something. On Thanksgiving, okay, on Thanksgiving, again, this is what populates. You see what's populating on my Facebook. It's always this stuff right here. I have no clue why. I've never clicked I liked. I haven't clicked I liked it. I just go right over it. But this shit is always populating. I don't know why. So it's always I don't get it. It's always these phrases and stuff. Like all of this stuff is always populating. I don't get it. So let me go into this page really quick. This is my messages from one of my sites. I have this guy who gets a hold of me. Okay, he comes in and he gets a hold of me on Thanksgiving, either Thanksgiving Day or on Black Friday. I think it was Black Friday. And this guy's body habitus Okay, his physical attributes and everything are just like Franklin's. And this is what I call reanimating. Reanimating. Okay. Reanimating is where they're taking a stimulus of abuse of the past and they're bringing that back into your reality. In this case, this guy right here, his name's Michael Curry. Okay. Looks just like Franklin from Shoals Ambulance. Looks very similar. Okay. And they're bringing this back on Thanksgiving, the day after. He contacts me around Thanksgiving, and then on Black Friday, we Facebook messaged. Okay. And this looks just like Franklin from Shoals Ambulance. Okay. This is what I mean by reanimating. Is they're using somebody, and they've done this with my father, they've done this with my brother, and they're doing it right now with my mother using the white SUVs. And they'll take these gray trucks, like my brother's Frontier, and they've been driving it around, these mid-size gray trucks, and they've been driving it around me everywhere I go. They've been driving these white SUVs around everywhere I go, literally by the dozens. By the dozens. Not like it's like here and there. By the dozens. Okay? Every 3 or 4 minutes. Wherever you go, they have these fuckers driving around you. And then they've taken this guy, Michael Curry in this case, to reanimate Franklin from Shoals Ambulance on Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving Black Friday. And contacts me on one of my passions and interests, which is my fishing jigs, and leaves it. Okay. This is the psyops and the psychological abuse that I'm talking about. And then they have these women in this website who act like they're fucking interested, and they're not. They're just interested in abusing you. That's what it's always been. It's always been that way. And then you wonder why, and then they wonder why there's guys out there that want to abuse them. Or they're abusive. And it's just like, there's no telling what type of people are on this program. If they're on it like me, then why the hell would I like a female? Why would I love somebody when you have a culmination of literally thousands of people? I have objectifiable evidence of thousands of people involved in abusing me. It's like, what's the fucking point? Anyways, that is the subject of this entire vlog here, which was going back to regional paramedics and highlighting that whole female component, which is Catherine Bailey and regional. Okay. And then using Shoals Ambulance with Franklin to reanimate abuse on Thanksgiving of 2024 on my fishing site. And then having this guy Boyd from, is it Florence or Clarence County? Anyway, South Carolina, get a hold of me. And they want to get a hold of me because they're involved in trying to orchestrate personal abuse with my fishing because I like to fish. So they want to get into the things that I enjoy, the specifics that I enjoy, and target those specifics. Okay, so if I'm fishing with a lot of Berkeley lures, then Berkeley County EMS wants to get a hold of me. In this case, that's what it is. It's Berkeley. I said Florence, but Berkeley County. I was thinking Florence, the city, I think. So Berkeley County EMS in South Carolina wants to get a hold of me so they can hire me and fire me, pretend like I need training, pretend like I need training. I've never needed training in any of the places that I've went. The only training that I needed was their operational training. I never needed medical training fucking anywhere. These guys are fucking, these are not the type of people that you want to be medically training with at all. And that's evidenced through multiple of my videos. Okay, so I don't need to train medically. The only training I've ever needed was how you guys run things at certain hospitals or how you do things administratively. But I don't need to train. I'm not about to get hired and go through some probationary academy to quote unquote train medically, okay, and then have to listen to your FTOs or whoever it is that quote unquote trains bullshit me through the medical training process. You can just keep that. You can just keep that because I've had enough of it.